Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking into something that's all around us, but we don't always think about: electricity.
It's true. Electricity is so essential to our modern lives.
It really is. We flip a switch, and a light turns on, we plug in our phones, and they charge.
But have you ever stopped to think about what's actually happening when we do those things?
Well, that's what we're going to be exploring today. Specifically, we're going to be looking at how electricity interacts with liquids.
We're going to be doing some experiments to see which liquids are good conductors of electricity and which ones aren't.
So think of it this way. Imagine electricity as a river flowing.
Some materials, like copper wires, are like smooth riverbeds that let the electricity flow through easily.
But other materials are more like rocky riverbeds, making it harder for the electricity to get through.
That's resistance. It's the ability of a material to oppose the flow of electric current.
Exactly. So we've got some simple tools here to help us investigate how different liquids conduct electricity.
We're going to be using a light bulb connected to a battery as our conductivity tester.
We'll dip the wires into different liquids and see if the bulb lights up.
The brighter the bulb, the better the conductor.
Pretty straightforward, right?
It is. And what's really cool is that the results can be pretty surprising.
Okay, let's jump right in. We started by testing some common liquids you might find in your kitchen.
Things like lemon juice, vinegar, tap water, and even distilled water.
Lemon juice, vinegar.
Yeah.
What happened when you tested those?
Well, the lemon juice and vinegar were pretty impressive.
Yeah.
They lit up the bulb brightly. They're both excellent conductors of electricity.
Why is that?
Because they're acidic. Acids contain ions, which are charged particles, and those ions are what carry the electric current.
Oh, so the more ions, the better the conductivity.
Exactly. It's like having more little messengers to carry the electricity through the liquid.
Interesting. Okay, what about the water? Did we see any sparks flying?
Not quite sparks, but there were some surprising results.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Well, when we tested the tap water, the bulb actually lit up. It wasn't as bright as with the lemon juice or vinegar, but it was definitely conducting electricity.
That is surprising. I wouldn't have thought regular tap water could do that.
Yeah, most people don't realize that, but tap water actually contains dissolved salts and minerals.
So it's those salts and minerals that are providing the ions, just like in the lemon juice and vinegar.
Exactly. Even though we can't see them, those impurities are acting as those tiny little messengers carrying the electric current through the water.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So what about distilled water?
Now, distilled water is a different story. It's basically pure H2O without those dissolved salts and minerals.
Yeah.
And when we tested it, the bulb barely lit up at all. Distilled water is a very poor conductor of electricity.
So basically, the purer the water, the worse it conducts electricity.
You got it. And this actually explains why we're always warned about mixing water and electricity.
Right. That's always something I've wondered about. Why is it so dangerous?
Well, remember how we talked about the dissolved salts in tap water making it a conductor?
Yes.
Well, our bodies are mostly water, right?
Right.
And that water contains salts too.
Oh, so if you touch an electrical appliance with wet hands.
The salts in the water on your skin can actually make you a much better conductor of electricity.
Oh, wow. So the electricity can flow right through you. That's scary.
Yeah, it can be very dangerous. That's why it's so important to be careful around water and electricity.
Okay, safety lesson learned loud and clear.
Good.
So we've seen how our simple light bulb tester can reveal which liquids are good conductors. But what if the electric current is too weak to light up the bulb?
Good question. There's another way to test for conductivity, even if the current is very weak. Yeah. And it involves using a completely different principle.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Well, have you ever heard that electricity and magnetism are closely related?
Yeah, I think I've heard that somewhere.
It's true. Even a tiny electric current can create a magnetic field around it.
Wow, so we can actually detect electricity by looking for magnetism.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to do with our next experiment. We're going to use a compass and a coil of wire to detect even the weakest electric currents.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does this compass tester work?
Well, first, you wrap a wire into a coil and connect it to a battery to create a circuit.
No.
Then, when you dip the coil into a conducting liquid, even a weak current flowing through the wire creates a magnetic field around the coil. And that magnetic field can deflect the compass needle.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're essentially using the compass needle as a tiny detector for these weak currents.
Precisely. It's a very sensitive method.
I bet. And did we discover anything new with this compass tester?
We did. We found that some liquids could conduct electricity even if the current wasn't strong enough to light up the bulb.
So this compass method is even more sensitive than the light bulb. Fascinating.
It is.
It seems like we're really becoming electricity detectives.
I like that.
Now, earlier you mentioned that the chemical makeup of liquids is key to their conductivity. But can electricity actually cause chemical changes in these liquids?
That's a fantastic question, and it takes us into a really exciting area of science, electrochemistry. And one of the coolest examples of this is something called the electrolysis of water.
Electrolysis.
Yes. And it's as cool as it sounds. We can actually split water molecules apart using electricity.
Wait, hold on. Split water molecules apart. Is that even possible?
It is. It might sound like science fiction, but it's a real process that's used in all sorts of applications.
Wow. Okay, I need to hear more about this. How do you split water with electricity?
All right, so picture this. We've got two carbon rods called electrodes, and we connect them to a battery.
Okay.
Then we submerge these electrodes in a container of water.
And what happens next?
Well, as the electric current flows through the water, something amazing starts to happen.
What happened?
You start to see gas bubbles forming on the electrodes.
Gas bubbles. You're kidding me. What kind of gas?
You're not going to believe this. The bubbles on one electrode are pure oxygen gas, and the bubbles on the other electrode are pure hydrogen gas.
No way. You're telling me we're actually breaking apart water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen just by using electricity?
That's exactly what's happening. It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It really is. So we're not just detecting electricity. We're using it to create something completely new.
Exactly. And this process of splitting water electrolysis has some pretty amazing applications in the real world.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it's used to produce hydrogen gas, which is a clean and renewable fuel source.
Wow.
It's also used in a variety of industrial processes, like extracting metals from their ores.
Incredible. So this simple experiment with water and electricity actually has huge implications for all kinds of industries.
It really does. And it just goes to show how powerful electrochemistry can be.
You know, this whole conversation has me thinking. We've talked a lot about how electricity can be used to cause chemical changes. But are there any examples of how chemical reactions can create electricity?
You're thinking about batteries, right?
I am.
That's a great example. Batteries are essentially little chemical factories that produce electricity.
So, in a way, batteries are the opposite of electrolysis.
You could say that. In electrolysis, we use electricity to drive a chemical reaction, while in a battery, we use a chemical reaction to generate electricity.
That's fascinating. I never thought about it that way before. Okay, I'm ready for the next experiment. What do we got?
Well, this next one is a bit of a fun one, and it involves a very unlikely test subject. A potato.
A potato. Really? Are we making French fries with electricity now?
Not quite, but this experiment is a perfect example of how accidental discoveries can sometimes lead to some pretty cool insights.
Okay, I'm all ears. What happened with the potato?
One of our researchers was experimenting with different materials, and they accidentally left the tester wires inserted in a potato for a while.
I've done that before. Sometimes I forget what I'm doing in the lab.
It happens to the best of us. Anyway, when they came back to check on the experiment, they noticed something really strange.
Oh, I bet this is good. What did they see?
The potato had turned greenish-blue around the positive terminal wire.
No way. The potato changed color. That's wild. What caused that to happen?
Well, it turns out that the electric current passing through the potato caused a chemical reaction with the potato starch.
Oh, interesting. So it wasn't magic. It was science.
Exactly. But even though it was an accident, this discovery turned out to be quite useful.
Useful. How so?
This color-changing potato can actually help you identify the positive and negative terminals of a battery.
Seriously, a potato can do that. That's so cool. Tell me how it works.
It's simple. Just connect the wires to the battery, stick them in a potato,